morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Tuesday, December 1st, 2015. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please go to CATEX TV. Last year, a Airbus A-320 crashed in Indonesia. Today, the accident report is out. 162 people, everybody on board was killed. Apparently, a rudder control system problem that had occurred 23 times in the previous 12 months, coupled with the pilot's response, led to the crash. The National Transportation Safety Committee of Indonesia said that on the December 28th flight, the rudder control system had sent repeated warnings to the pilot. This was from the flight from Surabaya in Indonesia to Singapore. Aircraft maintenance records for the Airbus A320 showed that similar problems with the rudder system had occurred 23 times during the year prior to the crash. The investigator said the fault was caused by a cracked soldering on an electronic card. Investigators say that the problem itself should not have been dangerous, but after the fourth time that the alarm went off during the flight, a crew member apparently went outside of handbook recommendations and removed the circuit breaker to try to reset the system. That resulted in warnings being ignored, and then finally, when the pilot did understand what was going on, he said, "Pull down." In fact, the plane was ascending at the time. The plane was lost at an altitude of about 35,000 feet and was presumed lost in the sea. Some 109 bodies have been recovered. The Associated Press was referred to a statement from AirAsia Airlines saying that they're increasing pilot training when the AP asked why the faulty rudder system was not repaired. They didn't answer the question. Puerto Rico faces a moment of truth today as the island owes a $355 million bond payment and interest payment, which if they miss or don't pay fully could cause a default, which would trigger lawsuits. The island is laboring under some $72 billion worth of debt. The payment on the bonds issued by the U.S. Commonwealth's financing arm, the Government Development Bank, are critical as Puerto Rico tries to stretch its liquidity into next year to give itself more time to restructure the debt. About 45% of the 3.5 million population in Puerto Rico is living in poverty. Some $273 million of the debt that's owed today is protected by Puerto Rico's constitution, so it's so-called general obligation debt. So any default on this is likely to trigger a spate of lawsuits and mire the Commonwealth into big difficulties. Martin Sen, the CEO of Zurich Insurance, is stepping down from his role as Chief Executive Officer at the end of this year by mutual agreement. Tom DeSwan, a member of the board, has been appointed as the interim CEO. Zurich is saying that Sen's departure is not expected to have any impact on the company's strategic focus or financial targets. The statement said the company is confident that it will be able to achieve or exceed its three financial targets for 2014 to 2016, namely a business operating profit after tax of 12 to 14%. Sen said that after 10 years with Zurich, there have been intense times as well as some setbacks in recent months, but I'm convinced we put in place the right measures for Zurich to reach its targets. The setbacks he's referring to are the disruptive period that Zurich has endured in the past 2 months only, which saw it pull out of its proposed acquisition of RSA, following a $300 million reserve strengthening exercise in its American book of business, which subsequently increased up to $367 million, $275 million of losses from the Tianjin port explosion in China, and a number of exits at a very high level, including the general manager CEO Mike Kerner, as well as the CEO of Global Corporate Business, Dan Reardon. Just this week, Zurich pulled the plug on its standalone boiler and equipment breakdown business in the U.S. It put its Middle East general insurance business into runoff and announced a major cost-cutting program which will see job losses in Germany and the UK. In the Paris climate talks, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and President Obama have both made pledges to step up the role of insurance and reinsurance in protecting the most vulnerable against the impacts of climate change. Ban Ki-moon said that reinsurance and risk transfer has a role to play to helping make the world more climate secure, especially poorer nations who are going to face the effects of global warming first. In Pretoria, South Africa, about 60 people have been injured at a train station near the Pinnendene railway station in Pretoria. 4 patients have been injured seriously enough to have been brought to the hospital. Initial reports stated there had been a train collision at the station, but that's apparently not true. Apparently, a pest control company was spraying chemicals on the roof of a house next to the station at about 9 a.m. when an explosion took place. The workers at the pest control company apparently thought the electricity had been cut, which it was not, and the flammable chemicals they were using to spray the insects with ignited. AM Best has said that all insurers should be concerned about the potential risk aggregation in their cyber insurance books. In a note released yesterday, the ratings agency warned there was a possibility of single attacks leading to losses across a large number of insureds. AM Best said the total realistic probable maximum loss for cybersecurity risk globally was probably around $31 billion, which is well above the estimated $4.6 billion for a nuclear loss. AM Best said that the figure remained within the $101 billion reinsurance capacity for a single event, but it urged carriers to refine the language in traditional business interruption, D&O, and commercial general liability policies to exclude cyber attacks while developing cyber-specific coverage to mitigate against losses from a hack. The German cabinet yesterday, actually earlier this morning, approved plans to commit up to 1,200 soldiers to support the international coalition fighting ISIS in Syria. The mandate still requires parliamentary clearance. Angela Merkel's governing coalition has a huge majority, so it looks as if it's going to be approved. Following the Paris terror attacks 3 weeks ago, Merkel honored a request from France to provide support for its operations against ISIS in Syria. Germany plans to send Tornado reconnaissance and tanker aircraft to Syria, as well as a frigate to help protect the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, but will not engage in active combat. The Germans do not expect to have more than 1,200 soldiers participating at any time. Well, it's interesting how things change. World War II, of course, ended 60 or so years ago, and now the Germans are coming to the assistance of the French. Progress. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.